This just in, we are getting reports that besides Humpty Dumpty, Draven, Glorious Executioner, also has had a great fall. Plenty of legends on the lookout to take Draven's top spot, so let's get to know these usurpers to be. What makes them tick, and how can one stop said ticking? Let's take a look at our very first contestant.
Our first legend is Irelia, who finally won their first national championship in Shenzhen, which, if you ask me, was about time. Now, the core game plan of this deck is still going to be that Protect the Queen style, where you want to build early board presence with support units and gear, and then you just want to try and protect Irelia while converting points into pressure. Now, this does play like a tempo deck at the early game, where you're going to be summoning a lot of gear and trying to get some early points with units such as Sneaky Deckhand. Now, once you've established board presence, that's when you start using your mobility. Cards like Ride the Wind and Flash give you so much mobility in this deck, being able to reposition your units, jump in and out of fights, and just take whatever you think is your best winning situation. Support gears are there too. Things like the Siren and Heart of Dark Ice allow you to move units back to base on your turn, or give them a big might bonus, so you can really just pick and choose your fights as you choose. Now, bans were a pretty big deal. The loss of Dreaming Tree was a big impact because that was Irelia's main card draw, and previously they would use this battlefield to just get as many draws as possible, so now they entirely rely on Stellacorn. And the problem with Stellacorn is that if you don't find that card, it does make it the deck feel very inconsistent. So with Stellacorn, great. Without Stellacorn, not so happy. This deck also faces the same issues as other decks that don't have that many units, and those being against cards like Cull the Weak that can just make sure you remove your own unit when you only have one on the board, so that's one thing to really look out for. So to summarize this deck, it still has great mobility and some decent early game pressure. It just requires some better piloting to try and really get as much card draw as possible, and more importantly, be able to close out games when you don't get the cards you need.
Now, Dubby is right, of course, but I prefer to play decks that got stronger after the bans, not weaker. And our following contestant is at a bit of a contrast with Irelia. It is Viktor, and where Irelia must treasure every single unit on our board, Viktor can afford to have a more progressive attitude towards the value of a life. His legend ability smooths out early turns, putting all of your energy to good use. Furthermore, it allows you to pressure battlefields early on into the game without losing too much card advantage when they do get reconquered. You are setting yourself up for large power plays in the mid game, leaving your opponents crippled and fumbling for answers. With synergies like Bellows Breath and a Thousand-Tailed Watcher, though not exclusive to Viktor, powerful nonetheless. Imperial Decree, however, is a spell that Viktor can put to use like no other legend can. Cards like Cull the Weak are in a particularly good spot this meta, where they are giving the edge to Viktor, especially in matchups that concentrate a lot of might in only a limited amount of bodies. Think of Irelia, think of Aurora matchups. More on those later. So it is clear that Viktor has access to a whole bunch of yummy treats in both the Order and Mind Domain. However, getting to see enough of them can be troublesome, because even though cards like Stupefy allow for some good filtering and utility, and cards like Hidden Blade are both flexible in offensive game situations and defensive ones, they do come at a price on either your bodies available to you or your rune supply. So you do have to treat every card in Viktor like a treasure. And if your plays, your bigger plays, are not getting the job done, you might need to take a turn to regain your strength before giving it another go. Viktor's more splashy turns are coordinated. Now, this is very helpful when starting out and picking up this legend, because it's easy to get the hang of the most pivotal turns in the game. However, more seasoned opponents catch on rather quickly and will try and protect themselves at all costs. So as you grow more experienced with playing Viktor, it's up to you to balance out not giving your opponent time to prepare themselves for these heavy blows, whilst also maximizing the impact of the cards that you do play. Lastly, Viktor is in an especially good spot after the bans. The bans have taken out the upper echelon of his competition, and he suffers very, very little. No cards are touched. Some battlefields were played in Viktor matchups, but he was already quite free to play whatever battlefield he likes. In general, Viktor lends itself very well to your particular playstyle. The core package can remain similar, but there's a lot of room for tinkering, making it fit how you want to play the game.
All right, now back to a very staple deck in Origins, that being Kai'Sa, right? Kai'Sa being incredibly popular to the start, did fall off a bit towards the start of Origins now, but with the bans coming through, I do see players picking up this deck more and more. Now, Kai'Sa did lose access to Reaver's Row. That ban slightly affected her because it did enable her to play aggressive and keep her units safe, but it's not the end of the world because there are other battlefields that she can easily play, one of which being Void Gate is so incredibly strong, giving all your spell instances +1 damage, really helping you out with wiping out opposing units. Now with Spirit Forge came a lot of repeat spells as well, that being Piercing Light, Rocket Barrage, and Bellows Breath. Those 3 spells in combination give you a multitude of opportunities to combine together to be able to just wipe out your opposing units, whether they're in base or in the battlefield. So that right there is such a strong power play if you can learn how to combine them together. They also have access to new units, that being Ferris Forerunner. For 6 energy and 1 power, you get a 6 might unit, and when it dies, you get 2 3-mech tokens. Like, those are so incredibly strong together, so it just gives her so much more pressure through her units. And speaking of units, you got Thousand Tail Watcher still, one of the best units in the game, and you can combine the passive to reduce all your opposing units' might by 3 with combination of those spells I mentioned before to just really get an excellent board wipe if you can set it up correctly. So Kai'Sa players are all about getting their combos together and just really kind of finding out what is their key path to victory. They also have some very good early control tools. Spells like Stupefy and Hextech Ray can just deny your opponent early points with their low might units, and you can even kill up to a 5 might unit with a Hextech Ray, combining it with 1 or 2 Stupefies or combining it with the Void Gate battlefield. So that right there is just another way these Kai'Sa players really show their skill, is by combining all their spells together to just absolute maximize their opportunities. So the deck still plays as a control deck. It does use a lot more spells, and the goal is to try and get up to the 7 points, sometimes even the 6 points if you have 2, and whip out that time warp to steal the win. Now, it does have some hard counters. Spells like Unyielding Spirit can just block out all these spell damages, Not So Fast doing the same, and the worst situation you can be is you play your time warp at 10 energy and the opponent whips out a hard bargain, denying that spell entirely. So that is something you gotta keep your eye out for. But overall, the deck still plays very similar to Origins, but these new spells do make it that much stronger. Now, let's talk about Dazzling Aurora, specifically the Master Yi variant, and why I consider it one of the strongest contenders in the current format. Now, why play Aurora, you might ask? Well, Aurora lets you cheat some of the biggest and strongest units in the game directly onto the board. If you enjoy playing huge expensive threats and bypassing their cost entirely, Aurora is one of the few strategies that really lets you do that. One of the biggest shifts in the meta came with the removal of Obelisk of Power, which made early ramp much less reliable for many players, but this deck still has a consistent way to accelerate. The key reason Master Yi reaches Aurora more reliably than other Aurora decks is Find Your Center. Most decks only have Mobilize as their turn 2 ramp option, but Find Your Center gives you another card to mulligan for, increasing your chances of finding a strong turn 2 play. Another important piece is Desert's Call to play an early unit of your own. Whether you're going first or second, it provides another early option alongside Mobilize and Find Your Center, improving the consistency of your opening turns, and because it's a spell, Aurora won't accidentally summon it when cycling for units, helping ensure you hit your stronger threats. The deck also benefits from counterspells like Defy and Not So Fast, which can help protect Aurora and key units from removal. A hidden Zhonya's can also be a great way to keep units alive. Of course the deck has weaknesses. Singularity is a major threat, dealing 6 damage, which is enough to kill units like Tasty Feyfolk and Master Yi Honed. Call the Weak can also punish you by removing a unit if it's alone on the board. And Aurora itself can be answered. Units like Akshan and Adaptatron or spells like Salvage can counter gear and remove Aurora if they connect at the right time. So while the deck is very consistent, opponents still have tools to disrupt it if they find the right moment.
Now our last contender is Rek Sai. And Rek Sai in this little period, post-bans but pre-set 3, is a real dark horse. A true dark void spawn, if you want. A dark Zursai, if you're being really specific. But as Rek Sai has several iterations, we'll be focusing on just the one. And that is the more yellow-heavy, swarm-heavy iteration of said deck. Now, Rek Sai is a true aggro deck, coming to life very quickly, very fast, overwhelming your opponent. And the reason that it works is Rek Sai can keep chugging along with the legend ability, allowing you to get more card advantage from conquering, keeping you chugging along. You have to conquer, and only start truly working when you're conquering, but that's a line of play you're gonna be having anyway in any aggro deck. So we are just rewarding what we would have been doing naturally anyway. So Order will be supplying us with cards like Call the Weak, Hidden Blade, all over again. They're very powerful. They're going to be taking care of the most problematic cards that you will be facing. Meanwhile, Fury will allow you to bypass some of the usual tempo with accelerated cards or just cheap beat sticks, such as Battering Ram, as you will be playing lots of cards in here. Now, when you are playing Rek Sai, you got to remember your A, B, C's. Always be conquering. Don't trust me, just ask my friend William. Now, when you are always conquering, you will be getting more cards due to Rek Sai, which will get you more units, which will allow you to conquer better, which will, you've guessed it, draw you more cards. Now, there are some downsides to playing Rek Sai. First of all, rune management is key. A lot of these cards, they are pricey on the rune. We'll be playing seals to combat some of that. However, nothing will be just proper learning curves. Put in the time to realize when it is worth it to pay the rune price and when it isn't. Furthermore, Bellows Breath and Thousand Tails Watcher will absolutely ruin your day. Now, luckily, those are only available in Mind, and Mind decks are not common at all currently. Jokes aside, when you're playing Rek Sai, you're truly playing the odds. It really pays to keep track of which cards you've seen and which cards you haven't seen. This is why Rek Sai can get such consistent results, because with all of the looking at the top of your deck you'll be doing, you know what is laying in wait. You know what your chances will be and what certain cards you are able to hit and which you aren't able to hit. So it will matter if you haven't seen a Noxus Hopeful the entire game. It's turn 3 or turn 4. You might want to play a card first before you start conquering. Make use of that Legion trigger. And it's these little flourishes that will separate a casual Rek Sai player from a more winning Rek Sai player. Finally, the bans have hit Rek Sai a little bit. They lost Draven, but in return, they never ever have to face Fight or Flight ever again. That is a trait that they'll take any day of the week. So in conclusion, Rek Sai is looking to overwhelm opponents sooner rather than later, abusing the fact how slow certain decks are and why, in my eyes, Rek Sai can really put on some surprisingly high results in the coming few weeks. Now, let's see. Yeah, did that? Yeah. I think that's all of. Yeah, I think we got all of the contenders out of the way. And I think the main takeaway is that Draven is gone. Draven's Dominion is no longer with us, a relic of the past, and we can all live in peace and harmony again. Draven is dead. Long live